welcome to our show today. I'm going to dedicate this show to a lady who has passed on, who was a registered nurse, and her name is Joyce Knutson. And we went to her celebration of life, I would call it, because it was definitely not a sad thing. It was definitely a group of people that were pretty happy about her having lived her life and were related to her. So this is her picture, and she actually had a friend at her funeral that went to grammar school and nursing school with her and was right there with her again. So that says something for her friendship as well. But what I was really interested in is the Nursing Honor Guard, the Chicagoland Nursing Honor Guard. So I have the lady who is now coordinating that, and her name is Liz Shannon, and she's sitting next to me dressed like a real professional nurse, which I have been asking nurses to wear this type of thing for a long time, because we all did wear this. And now I don't recognize nurses as nurses.
Right.
But you and the two other ladies that were there look beautiful in these outfits.
Thank you.
And I think I mentioned to you, my husband always liked the blue Cape Side nurses, although I never had one because my school had them only if you were going out to recruit or something. We did not have our own. And he saw them on nurses at another hospital, and student nurses thought they were very nice, and they are very nice.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Yeah, I didn't have one either. We had these made just for the Honor Guard.
Mm-hmm. And she had a specific one that was up.
Yeah, they had it on display. It was beautiful because she went to Silver Cross Hospital School of Nursing actually as a diploma nurse. So I think she started, her daughter told me, when she was like 16. Mm-hmm. So she was like the youngest one in her class, and she started, and she had, the cape was beautiful. And it had Silver Cross embroidered the initials on the collar, and they had it at her funeral. So it was really an honor to be able to do her memorial service.
And she worked a long time in her career.
She did. She had over a 50-year career because she started so young, and then she worked well after retirement age.
And I think she retired and then went back to work again as a school nurse or something.
Yeah, in Bolingbrook she did.
So let's talk about the variety of things you can do in a nursing career. What have you done in a nursing career?
Oh, geez. Well, I went back to school actually after I had my kids. So I've been a nurse for about 20 years, but I didn't go right out of high school. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I guess. But I have worked at a lot of the area hospitals around like the southwest suburbs, and I started on med-surg oncology, and I fell in love with the oncology patients.
That's a rough job.
It is a rough job. I don't think I could have ever done pediatric oncology. That's a special calling, but I always did adult oncology, and you get to know the patients. And I always told nurses when they would be afraid when they were starting, when they were new grads, I'd be like, you're with patients for the best of times and the worst of times. You're with them through their worst time of their life, and it's really an honor for you to be that close and to help them manage through that. So
very bittersweet time.
Yeah. It is, and I still remember all the patients I lost. You just never forget because you just get close to them. So I did med-surg and oncology at the hospitals in Joliet, Illinois, and kind of moved around, and then I wanted to do something different, so I went into just strictly infusion, just outpatient infusion. And I did those at a few hospitals, and that was really good because you saw the same people all the time. It was just like a little family that you had. And then I've worked at University of Chicago. I was a manager there, and I ran their oncology infusion clinic. And then I went down to a local hospital and ran their oncology med-surg unit and hospice services. So it's just been, nursing has been very good to me. It's just hospital, I was starting to needed a little break from the hospital just because it can be so stressful. So I actually work for a pharmaceutical company now as an educator for immunoglobulins for patients. And I get to travel all over and go to conferences. And I mostly teach pharmacists and nurses, and I love it and get to go everywhere.
Well, yeah, that's the beauty of this career. You can work all different hours. You can work all different types of things. I worked in occupational health and home care and the ER and psychiatry, and on major motion pictures.
Yeah, you can do everything, anything and everything. You can find a place where you'll fit in, and you'll have a good career.
So tell us about how you started with the Chicagoland Nurses Honor Guard.
Well, my friend Connie Giordenti, she started it in 2019. She had become a member of the Northwest Indiana Nurse Honor Guard that I'm a member of now too. And it's a really strong group. It's just a great group of nurses that volunteer to do these tributes. So she was already starting to try to get a group together for the Chicagoland area. And then there was a young man who was a nurse. His name was Frank Aguilar, that was shot outside his sister's home, still in his scrubs from work. It was a mistaken identity, and he got caught up in a gang violence drive-by shooting and was killed. So she was asked to go to that funeral. So her and her friend Sherry hurried up and got capes, borrowed capes, got everything together, and they went and did his funeral service. And so that's how it was born in November of 2019. And his family and friends have been just a wonderful connection and very supportive. So our group's named in honor of him.
Well, I wish nurses dress like that all the time now.
Yeah, it does. You feel very professional and like you have a little bit more authority, I have to say, with the cap on.
Well, and we used to love to have our caps, and it identified us about what school we went to and things like that. So everybody had different ones, and it was interesting. The only place we didn't always wear them was in the ER because they caught on the drapes sometimes, or in psych where somebody might pull it off your head.
You might get a little piece of you.
But even there, we did wear them sometimes. So you also told me that you're a newlywed, right?
Oh. Yes, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary in September. So
well, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've been together about 10 years, and I always say we have the Brady Bunch because we have 6 kids, and my father lives with us, so he's our Alice, and, you know, we're making a go of it.
Yeah. It sounds like an exciting household.
That's a good word for it.
Never a dull moment. Right?
There is not. There is not.
So are you educating, what are you doing? Are you giving classes to the infusion people now, or at the pharmacy, or just?
So yeah, what we do is I'm an educator for IG. You can also give subcutaneously, which is funny because when it came out like a little over 10 years ago and I saw it, I was like, who's going to want to do subcutaneous IG? But when I learned more about this job and I saw that patients, they just really want to get that independence back, especially the neuro patients that are really dependent on IG just to get through in life. To spend a whole day.
Explain what IG is.
So IG is made from plasma. So we will give IG replacement to people who either have immunodeficiency, and so they need that replacement, or for neuro diseases. The one in particular that I teach on is called CIDP. It's chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, which is why I always call it CIDP.
And well, that's kind of like MS, right?
It's similar. Yeah, it can have some of the similar symptoms, and we'll give IG replacement for them. Unfortunately, it takes a big dose of IG, so those patients need bigger doses closer together, so they're in infusion clinics quite often. So being able to give themselves IG subcutaneously gives them some of their life back.
How often do you give it?
They can dose if they're taking it for immunodeficiency. They can do it daily up to every 2 weeks for the medication I'm an educator on. And then for the CIDP, it's usually every week.
And do you see a big difference in them then?
I don't see patients directly.
Regular patients.
Yeah, just because of compliance reasons. I deal with the pharmacists and nurses, but it's really nice for those patients because it gives them back control of their lives. You know what I mean? They pick when they're going to infuse it. They can do it themselves, and it just gives them a little bit of that time back, a little bit of their life back. So, yeah, it's been great.
It's interesting you said that about plasma, because I personally would rather have plasma than red blood if something were to happen to me, because usually it's a volume problem that they're dealing with in the emergency room anyway, more than needing red blood cells.
Right.
And now there's problems with red blood cells sometimes. So, and I see now that they're paying people a lot for their plasma.
They are. Yeah. They are. You can. It's almost like a part-time job that you can do if you go and donate at your local plasma center.
What do they do to make sure that, there's nothing infected in it?
They go through a lot of cleaning process. It's a 3-step process for my company in particular. And the rate of viral transfer is negligible. It's like 0.01%, and we've never had it happen. So, and that's always something that I have memorized, especially now with the pandemic going on. It's so important because that's what, patients are worried about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll know who to call if we have any problems like that. So now explain to us exactly what you do in the ceremony. I call it a ceremony that you did at the
like
I'm calling it a funeral, but the memorial.
A memorial service. So I took the group over from Connie. I think it's been a little over a year now because Connie's husband retired and they moved to Florida, and she's living the life. So I took over the group, and we can be honorary pallbearers, or what mostly we do are small memorial ceremonies like you saw at Joyce's memorial service. So what we do is everybody, we ask that everybody gets a white dress uniform, white hose, and white shoes. I have many of these capes made. I have like a dozen of them, and then a little backup from the Indiana Nurse Honor Guard as well. So they don't need to bring that. I bring the capes and caps. And then what we do is we bring a lamp just like this one here, and we also bring a white rose to lay on their casket, and we say the nurse's prayer, and then we do the Nightingale tribute.
You know the nurse's prayer?
Off the top of my head?
No.
No. I have to read it.
Well, I'll
I bring
tell you
the copy
this,
with
at
me.
our black banding, one of the medical students, we had a medical school and affiliated with our nursing school, and at our black banding, he was also an entertainer at the Red Garter. John Pensiglione is his name, and he recited a song from one of the world wars, saying, "There's a rose that grows in no man's land, and she's beautiful to see. Though she's sprayed with tears, she will live for years in my garden of memory. She's the one red rose a sick man knows. She's the work of the master's hand. Through my life's great curse stood a smiling nurse. She's the rose of no man's land."
Oh,
so now you can add that to your...
Now you're showing me up. I don't have the nurse's prayer memorized. But so we do the nurse's prayer, and then we do the Nightingale tribute. And then we do...
When you say the Nightingale tribute, is that when you ring the bell?
We do that at the end,
okay,
when we do that final call to duty. So what we'll do is we'll say the nurse's name and ask them to report to duty, and then one of the honor guard nurses will ring a bell, and we do that 3 times, and then we release that nurse of their duty and release them of service and tell them to rest in peace, and that we'll take it from there. So it's a short service. It takes usually less than 5 minutes to do, but it's so powerful for families. So powerful for families, because there's a lot of sacrifice, not only for nurses over their careers, but for our families too, with the hours sometimes that we have to work. So it kind of helps bring some closure.
Well, it's kind of like the veterans' funerals, with the 21-gun salute and stuff like that. To have something like that is very unique.
Right, and a lot of nurses don't know that that this is available, right? Because it's very similar to what police and firemen do for when one of them have a fallen member. And so this is just something that I'm hoping that we're always looking for volunteers, always looking for nurses that we can go and honor.
And the veterans of foreign wars do that too. They have somebody stand up for them, so it's very unique. But I mean, who really came up with the idea? Was it the other lady you were talking about?
Was it Connie? Well, she had seen it, and the thing is that now there's even a national Nurse Honor Guard group that was started by Julie
really?
Murray. Yeah, and she's out of Michigan. And she started a national one, and it actually has a Facebook page, as the Chicagoland Nurse Honor Guard does have a Facebook page, trying to pull all the groups together, because it's actually been around for some time. It just, there's so many of us, and I was one of them included,
Yeah,
had never heard of it.
No, I never heard of it either. So where can people contact you if they want to join?
So they can either go on, join the Facebook page, that's the Chicagoland Nurse Honor Guard in honor of Frank Aguilar, and they can email me at, I have to remember how it goes. It's TCLNHG, so it's the Chicagoland Nurse Honor Guard initials, TCLNHG@gmail.com. And just let me know that you're willing to volunteer, approximately what area you're from and you're willing to cover, and then I'll reach out. We post memorials on the Facebook page, and really if I can get a lot of nurses to volunteer, then really you might only volunteer once a year. You do as much or as little as you want to. It's really, I ask for that at least just 1 year commitment to come and do.
And all they need is a uniform, white nylons, and white shoes, right?
Right. Yeah. I have the caps and capes. So, and it's really, as far as I know that I've been able to find, if any nurses are watching this that are a part of Greater Illinois Honor Guards, please let me know. But north of Kankakee to our, up to Wisconsin and around, there are no other nurse honor guards except for some that are associated with hospitals. Hospital-based ones are great. We have a private group, so I'm trying to cover from north of Kankakee all the way up to the border.
How much notice do you usually get?
Well, we like at least 3 days, but sometimes that's just not how it happens. So sometimes it's one or 2 days, and I've only had to turn one away because I just couldn't coordinate any nurses, because we like to have at least 3 volunteers when we go and do the service. I don't really want to ever turn anybody away. And even if it's I have one nurse that had to do a ceremony all by herself for Cook County, because they strode her for their hospital system, wanting to do something because there were so many nurses lost during COVID. And unfortunately, I was traveling for work and I couldn't go. And so she went and was a trooper and did it by herself. And she's from the north side of Chicago. But if there's interest in starting their own group, we're not looking for, it doesn't have to be part of Chicagoland. North Chicago could start their own group, West Chicago, western suburbs. Please reach out to me or Julie Murray on the National Nurse Honor Guard, and we'll help you get your group started.
Well, how did they get the capes and stuff like that then?
We used a McCall's pattern that was actually a magician's cape, because we couldn't find one for a nurse cape. And so we got it made using that pattern. Now, I can sew, but there's a slew of words that come out of me when I try to use a sewing machine. So we used a wonderful seamstress out of Frankfurt. Her name's Nicole. I can't remember her last name for the life of me, but she did a beautiful job, and she made all of these for us.
Well, you certainly made nurses look professional again. I'm upset because as a nurse, I'm upset about the fact that I see them running around in scrubs all the time.
Right.
I don't like that, and I'm saying it right here and now. You don't have to agree with me, but
I don't mind scrubs as long as they're not wrinkled and furry and hairy.
Well, we never left OB-GYN or surgery in scrub. We changed right there to be back in uniforms, to be professional. And now they're in navy blue scrubs and black scrubs and this and that. You don't know what's on them. There was a reason to wear white,
right? Because
then you would know if there's blood, bacteria, or whatever on there. And you don't know with these other things. And they hesitate to wear caps. They don't want to wear caps either. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Because you can't identify who's a nurse anymore.
Right. But we do it by color of their scrubs now, and it is usually navy blue. I'll mention it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know who came up with that idea, but whoever it was, I don't like it. I want to go back to the other way. There was an article in Reader's Digest that they asked me to give a comment about, and you'd be interested in this with infusion, but I said if somebody sticks you once and they got to stick you twice, don't let them do it, call somebody else. And I got some flack from some infusion nurses.
I'll let them do it twice, but then after that, please.
But I stand by that. Anyway, so what are some tips you would give people, since you're in a specialty thing, about, infusion, or don't let people do this or do that or whatever?
Career-wise, or?
Or for patients?
For patients, well, with patients with infusion, I just think anything, if you're getting any kind of infusion, get as much education as you can so that you come in prepared. Because in healthcare, I think sometimes we as the patient need to take responsibility too, you know, because you'll catch a lot of things, unfortunately, just because of the pace. The pace of the hospital has changed so much from when I was a new nurse.
And what about that? Nurses complain all the time. I'm on the board of Rasmussen Nursing School, and you know, they talk about the fact that they don't chart the same way now. They're doing it on computers, which makes it sound easier, but they claim you can't look back past a certain day or you can't do things like that. But they're always on the computer, because I had a relative in the hospital, and the nurses were always on the computer, and yet they were making mistakes, like giving a medication that shouldn't have been given because somebody was allergic to it and stuff like that.
Right.
And so what is the difference? Tell me, what's the difference now?
I just think it's a lot of times it's the acuity level. When I first started out as a new nurse, I worked on a 56-bed unit, and it was oncology, med-surg, and telemetry. I mean, it was booming. And I would have 7 patients at a time.
I was going to say, you had a lot of patients.
Yeah, I would have 7 patients at a time, and it was busy, but it was manageable. You know what I mean? Because the acuity wasn't so high. Now, when right before I left a hospital job, it was the same. It was just med-surg and oncology, no tele, and I was the manager, and the nurses would have 5 patients, sometimes 6, but the acuity level is just so much higher. And I just feel like it just always comes back to the nurse. Well, the nurse can do that. The nurse can do that. The nurse can do that. The nurse needs to be able to focus on the patient and take care of the patient. And I just feel like we're losing that nuance.
And see, in my experience with 5 different hospitals with this relative of mine, the nurse would come in and introduce, you know, they didn't seem to have the kind of conferences that we had, you know, with going over report as soon as you got together. They'd come in with the one going off and the one coming on and say, my name is Susie, wrote it down, and that's it. Yeah. They didn't talk to the family. They didn't sit and talk to the patient. And I said, well, how many patients do you have? And they'd say like 5. I said, well, you have 8 hours here. Why can't you talk to them? We did it.
Right.
And this is the part I don't understand.
Right. Because just the task level has gone up. I feel like so much more. And I don't think that it's just because I'm older than I was when I was a new nurse. But I just feel like the acuity level and what the nurses are being asked to do.
Well, what task level? Because they asked us to do everything, including
did they?
Raise the shades and clean up things and do that. Oh, yeah. You had to make sure the window was clean, and in addition to the back rub and the medicine and everything. So that's what I'm wondering. What is the difference here?
Right. Well, it's unfortunate that you had that at your hospital. Oh, one of my nurses, when I was still manager, said, you go over and get that shade. But it is just the acuity. You know, they could have one patient in hospice and when you get near the end of life, like, you want to spend a lot of time with that person. If they don't have a family member there, you want to be in there. You don't want anybody ever to die alone, right? And you want to make sure that they're supported and that they have comfort while they're dying. But then on the same shift, the same team, you could have a patient that you have to give chemo to and that you have to give initial teaching to about their chemo. Then you may have 2 other patients that have to go to surgery or are in a sickle cell crisis, you know. And when you throw up contact precautions, all the Joint Commission standards that they throw in, you know, it can be difficult to keep up that pace.
So how many patients, you know, I've always thought that nurses, like I owned a home care agency too, and a lot of nurses loved that because they had one patient. And I used to say a lot of nurses would come back into nursing if you could work at the hospital and you could choose how many patients you were going to take care of.
Right.
And you could, and you know, I guess years ago they actually did that, and you were paid according to how many patients you took care of. And I think a lot of nurses would do that if they knew that they could handle 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever.
Right. There has to be some kind of change with the ratios. We're losing so many inpatient nurses because of burnout, and just due to the fact of the patients that they were taking care of during COVID. It was the worst case scenario, right? Like, they couldn't have any visitors with them. We didn't have a good grasp on how the virus was working, and these people were dying alone. And to be that bedside nurse, you know, I was already at the pharmaceutical company, so I was not by the bedside anymore. But can you imagine being that nurse at the bedside, seeing this patient have to die alone? And I have so many friends that still work bedside, and they were holding up their cell phones and letting the patients FaceTime their family members so that they could say goodbye. But then at the same time having 5 or 6 other patients that they had to go take care of. And it's just it's not healthy for nurses. We're going to lose more and more in our profession if we don't take better care of them and have better ratios.
Well, I also disagree with these 12-hour shifts, because then you don't have the continuity of seeing a patient like 5 days a week or something.
Right.
Where you really know them, because they're all jumbled up, and then, you know, you get to know the nurse and then they're gone.
Right.
Or they get to know you.
Right, and they might not work for another 4 or 5
Right.
days, and by that time the patient moved on.
So I don't know who dreamt that up either.
Yeah, I just, and there's been studies done that 8-hour shifts are, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been proven that 8-hour shifts are safer for the patients and for the nurses, because there's just a fatigue level. I mean, working on an inpatient unit, whether you work med-surg to ICU, you are constantly running. And 12 hours are nice. You know, I was forced to do 12 hours for a while when I was a bedside nurse, because it was like you switch to 12s or that's that. And it was so hard because I was exhausted, and people would say, family members would say, oh, but you only work 3 days a week. I'm like, yeah, but I'm on the couch 2 of my days off, and so really I get 2 days off like everybody else.
16-hour shifts a lot, you know, because of the shortage of nurses
Right.
and stuff, but we were also very young at the
Right.
time. So I can remember working a schedule of 2 days, 2 evenings, and 2 nights, 6 days a week. And I didn't know if I was coming or going, to tell you
Right.
the truth, you know.
Right. But that was your choice, right? And I did it too, and that was my
Well,
choice.
you were also
I wasn't
older
being
when you
forced
went into it. I mean,
Yeah.
I was 17, 18, 19 years old, you know, and I didn't have a house and kids and responsibilities
to
like
have
that.
to get back
you know?
to, sure.
So it was a whole different situation. We only have a couple minutes left. I want you to tell them again how to contact you, and if they want to join your club.
Yes.
I'll be an
please.
honorary member.
That would be, I'll take any members I can get. No. So if you'd like to volunteer, if you can join the Facebook group, it's the Chicagoland Nurse Honor Guard in honor of Frank Aguilar. You can join that page, send me a message, and I'm Liz Shannon LaDolce on Facebook. You can find me there. And we have an email, it's tclnhg@gmail.com. If you're interested in joining my group or starting your own, please reach out and we'll help make it happen.
Can you spell your name?
My name is Liz, and last name is Shannon, SHANNON. And on Facebook, it's my hyphenated married name, so the last part is LODOLCE, LaDolce.
Very good, very nice. And we want to thank the family of Joyce Knutson also, because I got to go and experience what you were doing there. It was very, very nice, and a great family. She should be very proud.
Oh yeah, she had a lovely family. Yep.
And she's got a nursing family, her granddaughter.
Yes.
Probably even more of them, but I know.
Right.
So thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join the Nurse Honor Guard. I know I sure like to have it at my funeral. I also want to sing Throw Me a Party. I don't know if you've heard that song.
No. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Okay, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
Liz.
for
Thank
having
you.
me.
You put in a lot of time, and you really should be appreciated, because I know it's not easy to coordinate.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you for joining us.